Everyone hear me? Yeah. The order is K, counterplan, federalism, warming, solvency.
One more time, you make it one more time?
All right, the K, counterplan, federalism, warming, solvency. All right. Is anyone not ready? I'll wait for these kids to sit down.
Quick like cats. At least you know you're awake now.
Well, they'll get it. All right. Is anyone not ready? I'm going. K not going forward. There's no unique offense. They can't send anything, and we won't. Count it. 50 state fiat. The counterplan is legitimate. One reciprocity after control the plethora of actors within the federal government, like the Department of Transportation. 2, it's real world. National Government Association, National Conference, and state legislators prove that 50 states work together. 3 is net ground. State counterplan is core, net generic on domestic topics is a key to check against innovation. 4 is limits requiring a federal key warrant is key to determine which apps can be grown strategically. 5 is disadds don't solve our offense. The counterplan is key impact defense and its multiplicity of advantages and add-ons. And 6, reject the argument of the team community norms means that will never be deterred from running the state's counterplan. Next is they say permutation do both when counterplan links to politics. First, permutation links to politics and federalism because it involves government action or retards that later, but the counterplan doesn't link to politics. Their evidence just as existing legislation would have Congress oversee the states, not that the counterplan would be overseen by Congress. 3 is the permutation fails. Federal investment guts solvency. The states must act independently. Roth 10. The federal finance become inefficient. Federal spending is often misallocated with low value activities. Regulations go hand in hand with federal aid and stifle innovation. The federal government pursues misguided use of policies, fiscal powers, and regulatory controls. Federal intervention creates inefficiencies. E. State governments can tap the transportation without federal intervention. The permutation fails and relies on cooperative federal framework to crush the solvency against modeled gold with Reed 2000. American federalism becomes administrative cooperative federalism. State and local governments administer and implement federal programs. Many state programs are funded by the federal government. D. Stable simply means fundamental institutional changes, challenges, and especially attempts to reintroduce competitive structure and lawful flounder on competitive federalism and political economy. Many other countries, however, have adopted cooperative federalism and constitutional arrangement. Political remedies for cooperative federalism and pathologies are only possible under exceptional circumstances. They say no solvency, but the counterplan solves all of the case. Public-private partnerships provide incentives for investment by private companies in high-speed rail. The counterplan removes regulations on P3s, which means that none of their answers are responsive because the counterplan creates a stable arena for investment. That's the 3 enterprise items. And the Interstate Compact solves all of their national model arguments. The states use the Interstate Compact in order to create a national model that works together perfectly. That's our moral evidence. Also a reason why the counterplan is predictable and theoretically legitimate. And P3 solve HS on 3 reasons. Tortovich, 2011. Private partners are better able to control construction finance risk, and public partners are better able to manage political entitlement risk. Ridership is both shared by both parties and for both benefit from ridership exceeds expectations. These mechanisms make large projects feasible without the need for governments to deal with private 100% of the public funding and faster project delivery. Private entities can draw on experienced delivery projects within a time and budget. They're also motivated by financial incentives for incentives performance and congressional mandates kill investment. Business confidence, D-Haven intend the ultimate blame for Amtrak's long record they ready to pour performance lies with Congress. Congressional mandates spend a huge amount of money maintaining money losing routes and expensive routes with heavier traffic like the Northeast Corridor that also do investments in futures. The Amtrak was wasting money elsewhere. This also answers their term that and their sweet evidence says that states could solve if it's cooperative across all states. Means the counterplan solves because of the Interstate Compact. Next is a Northeast Corridor. Yeah. That answers their federal funding key argument. That's the sweet evidence. Next is the Northeast Corridor turn. They have first, there's no impact to the Northeast Corridor. They just want to crown says this is the 6th largest economy. That doesn't mean they don't tell you. It doesn't mean the counterplan doesn't solve their app. They have to do don't do the work for them. Second is their Hagler evidence just says that people don't want to ride trains in the Northeast Corridor. The plan doesn't solve for ridership either. Third is that P3s make federal funding irrelevant. They do the same thing. NCSL 10. The federal legislation passed in 1991 first allowed federal funds to be mixed with private funds for highway development. Congress limited dollars thresholds on design, building, contract contract to make any federal aid highway project potential eligible use for this project. There are free enterprise evidence as well as the interstate compact evidence. All answers indicates we can quote build a sustainable high-speed rail. Their evidence has no warrant for why federal government funding is key. It just says it. That's not a card. And their sweet evidence only says that state-funded HSR has failed in the past. That doesn't assume a world of counterplan that fiat's use of interstate compacts as well as public-private partnership and federalism. Conceded the impact only argument is that the evidence is old. That does not matter. Sullivan's much younger than me. That means he should lose the debate. That's the same type of argument. Federalism's modeled globally or calibrated evidence as well as the second piece of evidence indicates that it's modeled by emergent democracies to create powers that prevent secessionism and breaking up of states, which makes instability globally inevitable, makes great power conflict inevitable, turns all of their arguments. These great power conflicts will ensure the U.S. and China get dropped because they're two major powers, and federalism's key to the economy turns the entirety of the act begins 96. A federalist free trade system part of the United States becoming the economic superpower, federal just political and economic expansion, forcing state governments to compete in capital skills and national century imposes substantial limits on government's ability to expropriate federal with unique important impetus behind regulatory relief in the United States. Unique to state the ARC Center, unique evidence, transportation infrastructure is the most important thing. The federalism is funded and led by state policies with little intrusion by the government. Their evidence is bad. The immigration decisions a drop in the bucket, else not relevant to transportation infrastructure. Our evidence is the most imperative, and federalism strength the states are stepping up. Cap 12. The states have broad powers over infrastructure, marketing areas, infrastructure, innovation, energy, education, skills training. When the federal government has become polarized, fails to act in critical issues, national important states can step in larger roles. When Washington moves grid-like partisan grid-like states in metropolitan areas and doing just that, implement federal transportation policy in limbo states like Michigan are modernizing their air rail and sea freight hub states, which literally building a special integrating advantage bubble state. Innovation offers practical counterpart in Washington. The federalists in link argument, they say there's no link. There's no warrant extended explained above our transportation big issue. That's the Horowitz evidence. They say cooperation solves that. The answer on the permutation cooperative federalism is the worst model that causes economic failures. Means there's no infrastructure will ever be built independent distant to the affirmative nexus modeling. They say impact is extended above people model the U.S. federal system engaging in emerging democracies when cooperating to solve wars. Recent Arab Spring puts conflict on the brink right now. Secessions of democracy can happen. And it means it happens faster than the affirmative. Warming. Extend the first piece to the Rogers evidence. They can't solve because Chinese emissions are much higher than the U.S. They say the Holter evidence says the U.S. will lead. There's no reason why they would follow the U.S. It just seems like the U.S. is catching up to other countries who also already have high-speed rail infrastructure. If we win any risk the high-speed rails not use alternative energy, there's no reason they would model the plan next. They say China understands warming. They will because it hurts agriculture. That's the reason why the status quo solves warming, because China will switch inevitably because it hurts agriculture, and other countries have an incentive to switch outside of following the U.S. Next is the O'Toole evidence indicates that high-speed rail uses diesel fuel to run on massively. Our O'Toole evidence compared is massively worse than what's happening in the status quo. There's also the second, the next piece of O'Toole evidence indicates that high-speed rail is backed up by coal-generated electricity, which prevents any decrease in emissions. Next is the link turn. Their only answer is that there's no renewable tech right now. They've conceded our evidence indicates things like carbon sequestration are being pushed for in Congress right now, and those things are going to be able to solve warming. But push for high-speed rail trades off with any of those. If we win any of our solvency arguments, the reason why the plan fails. Next to that, CO2 already happening. They just say they can stabilize emissions. Arguments indicates the CO2 already in the air is causing positive feedbacks that happen because of ice melting. That makes their impact inevitable. No matter what the app does, warming is going to happen. Solvency. Freight trade-off. He says they'll build new infrastructure. None of their evidence says that. They just say that there's a national model for how they'll do this. They can't build new infrastructure. There's not a lot of places to build new railroads, wholly new railroads. But freights would inevitably be pushed off the railroads because high-speed rail be built, which means that freights would drive trucks, turns all of their emissions are because more trucks will be on the road. Those use diesel fuel, which is worse and dirtier burning than the fuel that's being used right now. Next is the Hall evidence. It's the newest evidence from June. It indicates that the plan fails because it won't be implemented. Republicans may pass the plan. They make it to fiat that the plan passes, but Republicans will do what they can to bog down federal stimulus projects because they think those projects are unpopular and they are being rejected right now. Proven transportation bills were rejected in the past. That's their uniqueness evidence. Their ridership argument, they don't have any evidence that says they increase ridership. Their evidence in the counterplan, as well as our O'Toole evidence, says that people just don't want to ride trains. They think they're stupid. They have no evidence that says they would be able to solve that. Yeah.
Let's start in the counterplan with the NCSL evidence. It says public-private partnerships and federal funding are relevant. The passed in 1991, first allowed federal funds against private funds. How would public-private partnerships be able to fund the Northeast Corridor? And Amtrak owns the Northeast Corridor, and all of the federal shares of Amtrak are controlled by the federal government.
I mean, we have two arguments. The first is that just because the federal government owns something does not prevent investment in that something.
Well, why?
Amtrak is still a company that can be invested
The
in.
federal government owns the shares of Amtrak. How
Yeah.
can public-private partnerships suddenly invest in a federally owned company?
The state and the private companies will invest in building infrastructure for high-speed rail. I don't understand any reason why, just because the government owns a majority, or I don't even know if it's the majority, your evidence says, owns some shares in Amtrak, why that prevents investment in it. Secondly, our NCSL 10 evidence.
That makes sense. On your future Torovich evidence?
Yeah, the Torovich
It
evidence.
says P3 solved. Where does this evidence indicate that public-private partnerships can provide the capital investment needed to jumpstart the national high-speed rail network?
Private partners are better able to control construction and financing risk, and public partners are better able to manage political and entitlement risk.
There is a key distinction between operating costs and capital investment.
Construction and financing risk.
We're talking about capital investment.
Construction and financing risk, that is investment.
Operating costs over the long term. That is
No, construction is different than operating.
Okay, let's go to federal. What countries model U.S. federal?
A lot of countries. Our grief evidence on the counterplan mentions Germany specifically, but countries like Libya, emerging democracies like Nigeria, those countries
Why would
model.
fledgling democracies model U.S. federal?
Because we're one of the biggest democracies in the world.
Well, why wouldn't they model countries like Europe, who has a far more progressive?
Because Europe's banking system is failing. Europe is in flames right now.
Sorry?
Europe is in flames right now. Banks all across Europe are failing. The EU has failed to provide any measures to keep countries like Greece and Ireland from going bankrupt.
Okay,
The U.S. is doing a lot better.
Read these evidence. It says federalism is key to the economy. It's describing the way that federalism has operated since the building of the Constitution, how it causes good regulation standards. How would the plan uproot that since of federalism your evidence is talking about its key to the economy?
Well, our evidence indicates that when state governments work, they have the ability to adapt and remove regulations on companies. The plan would be a large imposition of a regulation on companies.
Why would the transportation sector be the key area in which would prevent states?
Well, that's different than what this is an impact card. Our Horowitz evidence indicates transportation is uniquely key. It's an area where the federal government has stayed out in the past and deferred to states, as opposed to other things like immigration